Hello friends, I am glad to see you again. Today I will talk about the HOA that wants access to my new house. I was scrubbing the inside of my front door with a magic eraser when the knock came. Not tentative, not neighborly. The kind of knock a repo guy uses when he's trying to look inside your soul. I glanced through the peephole and saw a clipboard before I saw faces, then a red polo, a navy blazer over it like someone dressed for two jobs at once. Next to the blazer was a man with mirrored sunglasses you could have used to land a plane. Behind them, 3 more red polos fanned out like they'd practiced it. I'm not a jumpy person, but I'm also new to living alone. This was my first house, the first real front door I could repaint without asking permission. I'd closed 6 weeks earlier on a 3-bed ranch just past the old orchard where the road dips. I was very proud of this door. I'd kept the original brass lock set even though the home inspector said it was quirky. That day, the lock set felt like a handshake with my better judgment. I cracked the door. A whiff of early summer mulch drifted in. "Good morning," the woman in the blazer said. She had a calm, practiced smile that didn't touch her eyes. "I'm Marilee, president of the Trails at Weatherfield Association. You can call it the TWA. We're here to complete a routine inspection of your property. You missed our notices." The man with the mirrored glasses shifted his weight so I could see a laminated badge clipped to his pocket, not a law enforcement badge. A lanyard from a print shop that said "Compliance" above a blurry photo and the name Dax. I tried not to laugh at the name Dax and failed. "I didn't miss anything," I said, "because I don't belong to your association." Her smile paused. A flicker, like a slideshow slide changing. "Sir," she said, "everything on this street is part of our community." I shook my head and held up my phone. It was already open to the county parcel map and the CC and Rs for the old Trails at Weatherfield subdivision. The boundary line ended down the block, right where the sidewalk cross-stitch changed. "Everything on that street is part of your community. My house is outside your boundary. That's why I bought it." One of the red polos whispered something. Marilee didn't take her eyes off me. "Our records show you're in good standing so long as you provide the CC and R access code to the security pad and schedule your paint swatch review." "The what now?" She glanced at her clipboard. "According to your file, we approved your neighbor's keypad code last winter. We expect the same cooperation from you. You do not have my keypad code. You do not have my permission for anything. Also, there is no security pad on my property." I gestured at my brand new Schlage deadbolt. This is a lock." Marilee's smile deepened, which somehow made it worse. "I'm being patient," she said in a tone that suggested the opposite. "But this isn't optional. We came today to verify the interior paint colors, measure the setback of your new shed, and inspect your yard for non-conforming vegetation. We also received 2 complaints about your parking." I peeked over her shoulder. My truck was in the driveway. My driveway, set back from the sidewalk. "What complaints?" "Multiple vehicles overnight," Dax said, like a robot who'd just discovered nouns. "Non-compliant with the 3-hour street parking restriction." "I'm not on your street, I'm on my driveway." "Neighbor compliance is important," Marilee said, nodding toward the house to my right. "Owen was very accommodating when we needed access. He set a great example for the block." "Owen's garage door is lime green," I said. "If this is about paint, talk to him." Marilee went quiet. The red polos adjusted their clipboards like birds fluffing their feathers. Dax took the kind of half-step that says, "I am about to put my shoe in your door, buddy." I closed it a hair. "All right," I said. "Let's cut to it. You're not my HOA. You have no jurisdiction here. If you step past my property line, you're trespassing. This conversation is over. Have a good day." I started to close the door, but the edge caught on Dax's shoe. "That's not wise," he said, all low growl. The mirrored lenses turned me into a dead-eyed fish. "Remove your shoe," I said. "You are not stepping inside my house." "We don't actually need permission," Marilee said lightly. "We have an easement. We can check our records, but I'm pretty sure it was filed with the plat. Historically, inspections like this are cooperative. We found it's better to avoid confrontation." "Check your records," I said. "But you're not stepping on my property without a warrant." "Warrants are for criminal matters," Dax said with a smile that looked like it hurt him. "We handle civil compliance. You don't need a warrant. You just get fines." "We prefer not to go the eviction route," Marilee added, as if she were doing me a favor. "But once the board votes, it becomes very difficult for you to remain in good standing." I blinked. "Eviction?" I tried to keep my voice even. "From a house you have no control over?" It's not punitive, she said, it's administrative. You can't pay dues or satisfy violations if you're outside our governance structure. It's in the covenants. The second you bought that second house outside our planned community boundaries, our bylaws triggered an exclusion clause. You can't be both outside and inside, so you're evicted. But we can still inspect to close your account. That's when the entire situation took a hard left into the weird. I'd never lived under an HOA. I'd skimmed horror stories online when I was house hunting and intentionally avoided neighborhoods with any absolute caps headlines. I thought I'd done the homework, so I did what I do when my brain is juggling anger and disbelief. I started recording. I propped my phone on the little shelf by the door and hit the button. Just so we're clear, I said into the lens, you're saying I was evicted from your association because I bought a house that's not part of your association, but you still want access to my house to do an inspection, and you want my lock code. We already have a precedent, Marilee said smoothly. Your neighbor complied. We expect the same from you. We also need your router credentials, Dax added with stunning confidence, like he was ordering fries, to validate that you're not using a non-approved internet provider. I choked. Get off my property. Marilee kept smiling. We're just doing our job, or I can call the tow company to tag your truck for non-compliant parking. Either way, we'll proceed. And I'll call 911, I said. Silence. Even the red polos were watching the exchange like an episode of a show they pretended not to like. Dax made a wheezing sound that might have been a laugh. For a civil matter, he said, they'll tell you to call your property manager. I am my property manager, and this is trespassing. Neighbors work things out, Marilee said. Be a neighbor, please. Let us in. Quick 5 minutes, that's all. Okay, I said and dialed. You can wait for the officers with me if you're so sure. I put the phone on speaker. The operator picked up. I gave my address, stated we had a group claiming to be a homeowners association demanding access to my house, blocking my door with a foot, and threatening to tow my car. I said they refused to leave when I told them they were not my HOA and that they were trespassing. The operator told me officers were on the way and asked if anyone was attempting to force entry. Just a shoe, I said, and a lot of confidence. Marilee's smile went brittle. There's no need to escalate. You raised the stakes the moment you claimed to evict me from your club because I bought a house outside your club, I said. Stay right there. Do not step onto my threshold. I'm done talking. The operator told me to remain on the line if I felt unsafe. I said I was okay for now. The red polos huddled. Dax finally removed his shoe. He tugged his polo collar and did that thing where you try to peer past someone's shoulder into their house without looking like it. Marilee moved off to the edge of the porch and started dialing. While we waited, my neighbor Owen tinkered with his lawnmower and pretended not to stare. I walked to the end of my porch, careful to keep some space. Owen, I said, did you give them access to your house? Owen froze like I'd caught him sneaking cookies. He's the sort of guy who wears socks with flip-flops because the socks are comfortable and he refuses to choose. They said it was standard. They threatened to fine me for a thing with my roofline from 1997. I wasn't even alive in 1997. I think you were alive, man, I said. He looked at the red polos and then at me. They said if I gave them my lock code, they'd waive the back dues. They said it would be quick. And it was quick? How quick, I asked. He did the thing where you scratch behind your ear when you're buying time. Like, 20 minutes? They measured stuff. They plugged something into my router and told me I needed a different plan for better community network support. They said, Owen, Marilee trilled, all honey. Let's not involve you in something you're not part of. He is part of it, I said. He's my witness. The cruiser rolled up before the standoff became something else. 2 officers got out, one gray at the temples, one younger, steady. The older one's nameplate said, O. Penner. The younger in training had a strip of tape where a name would be. Officer Penner listened. He asked me to step back onto my porch, asked the group to step off. He was calm in the way I imagine a lot of little storms make you. He asked for IDs. Marilee produced a HOA business card. Dax flashed the laminate again. The red polos became the most fascinating examples of lawn statues you've ever seen. Here's the deal, Officer Penner said finally. I don't adjudicate HOA disputes, but I do enforce criminal trespass. This homeowner says you're not his HOA. He asked you to leave. If you step onto his property after being told not to, that's a problem. Do you understand? Marilee tried her smile again. We have an easement. Do you have it in writing right now? We can pull it. "Do you have it right now?" he repeated, pleasant and firm. She glanced at her clipboard. "Not on my person." "Then you don't have it for the purposes of not getting trespassed today." He turned to me. "Would you like them formally trespassed?" I looked at Owen. He looked at his shoes. I looked back at the group. "If they step 1 foot past the sidewalk or onto my driveway, yes," I said. "If they stay on the public sidewalk, I don't care. But they're not allowed on my porch, yard, or driveway. Not today, not tomorrow." Penner nodded, had me fill out a form. He issued the warning, very official in the way you get when you've said the same words so often the commas live in your lungs. He asked if anyone had damaged anything. I said no, but I was keeping the video in case the internet provider thing turned into something else. Marilee took a breath like she was about to file a grievance against Oxygen, and then pivoted. "You may not be aware," she said to Penner, "but he's in violation of our bylaws. We've already evicted him from our roles. Eviction precludes his access to common amenities. We still need to close his account." Penner blinked. "Ma'am, he lives in his house." "It's an association matter," she said. Penner looked at me. "You own the house?" I had my folder ready. Closing docs, the deed, the parcel map, the CC and Rs of trails at Weatherfield with their boundary highlighted in neon. He skimmed. He turned the map upside down and then right side up and pointed down the block. "Looks to me like your property is not included," he said. "Ma'am, unless you've got a court order or some other lawful authority, you're done here." Marilee's mouth made a little line. "We'll see you in civil court." "Take it to civil court," he said. "You know where the courthouse is." She gathered her group like a mother duck with very poorly trained ducklings, and they left. Penner lingered. "You all right?" "Yeah," I said. I exhaled. "Thank you." He looked at Owen's lime green garage door as if tasting it. "For what it's worth," he said, "if they come back and cross the line after the warning, call us. We'll document. Keep your paperwork. Don't hand them anything. If they threaten to tow, film it." "Got it," I said. He got back in his cruiser. Owen shuffled over. "Sorry," Owen mumbled. "I didn't know." "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. "You opened your door to people with clipboards who sounded official. Half of America would do the same thing." He looked relieved, then worried again. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, "I read everything. I work remotely for a company that doesn't care if I do my job at midnight, so the afternoon became a marathon of filings, statutes, and CC and R rabbit holes. I pulled the plat map. I pulled the HOA bylaws using an old archived public file. I printed and highlighted until my printer chewed paper like a toddler. Trails at Weatherfield had been recorded in the 90s, a tidy cluster of cul-de-sacs. My street had been part of the county, then a pocket developer grabbed cheap infill lots and did their own thing without an HOA 5 years ago. The boundary line was clean as a haircut. So where did this exclusion clause come from? I found it. A paragraph in the bylaws about dual residency and dual memberships. If you owned a second home outside the association, your amenity privileges could be suspended pending board review of whether you were sufficiently committed to the community. It's absurd, but also common in the kind of neighborhoods that think pickleball is a personality. It didn't talk about evicting people from their homes, it talked about revoking access to the pool. I also found something else. Trails at Weatherfield had just changed management companies. 6 months ago. New letterhead, new enforcement style. I couldn't use those names for anything, but I could see the imprint of a place that liked clipboards and mirrored sunglasses. They'd attached a community network policy to their handbook. If you squinted, it looked like they needed to plug into people's routers to verify compliance. Nope. I emailed the county recorder's office and then called. A woman with a kind voice who introduced herself as Miss Lively said she'd seen a lot of neighborhood drama and that the word easement gets thrown around like confetti. She offered to double-check the recorded easements on my parcel. A half hour later, she called back. "There's no recorded HOA easement," she said. "You've got the standard utility easements. You've got a drainage swale in the corner of your backyard. There's a fence line maintenance easement with your rear neighbor. That's it. If someone says they have an HOA easement, they are either confused or enthusiastic." "Enthusiastic," I repeated, and she laughed. I bought a cheap door camera that afternoon and mounted it. I wrote a sign for my gate in big block letters, "No trespassing. Non-residents must stay off property per statute reference." I printed the state trespass code and taped it inside the door. I typed up a one-page letter, "Notice of no association." I laid out the facts. Boundary lines, parcel number, recorded plat, lack of HOA interest. I included a sentence about revocation of any implied license to enter my land by Trails at Weatherfield or its agents. I mailed it certified to the address on their letterhead. 2 days later, the letters began. White envelopes at first, then pastel warning colors like Easter eggs. They called me Dear Member. They said I was no longer in good standing due to exogenous ownership and owed an exit fee for administrative closure. They instructed me to schedule an inspection to verify I had removed my non-conforming items: a basketball hoop I don't have, a satellite dish I don't have, and weeds I mowed myself 2 hours ago. The fine schedule escalated with each envelope: $50, then $100, then $250, then $50 per day for non-cooperation. The fourth letter said final notice in energetic red. It stated they would engage third-party contractors if I continued to refuse access, and any costs incurred would be assessed to my account, which didn't exist. I took my folder to a local attorney named Mr. Dre, who specializes in property disputes. He had a diploma on the wall and a smile that said he'd seen enough to find this funny in a seasoned way. He read, nodding. "This," he said, "is nonsense." "Is nonsense a legal term?" I asked. "It will be today," he said. "You are not under their covenants. You owe them nothing. If they try to collect on a debt you don't owe, and especially if they threaten foreclosure or cloud your title with a lien, that's a problem. That's the kind of problem state consumer protection likes." "I called the police when they showed up," I said. "They backed off." "Good. Keep calling if they return," he said. "In the meantime, send them a letter on my letterhead. We'll demand they cease contacting you except through counsel. We'll put them on notice that any attempt to enter your property will be met with a suit for trespass, and that any attempt to place a lien will be a slander of title claim." I didn't know what slander of title was until that moment, but the phrase felt like armor. "And," he added, "if you want to play offense, we can ask the court for a declaratory judgment. That's where a judge says in black and white, they have no rights here. Sometimes a strong letter is enough. Sometimes people like this need paperwork to read them back to themselves." We sent the letter, certified again, then we waited. They did not take it well. The following week, a white work truck with magnets that said Community Services backed into my driveway at 7:12 a.m. A guy in a neon vest got out and began measuring my mailbox with a tape measure like he'd been waiting his whole life to meet this mailbox. I came out with my coffee and my phone. "You're in my driveway," I said. "We're here to verify compliance with mailbox height and street-facing number size." He gestured toward the little laminated task card he carried. "Who's we?" He jerked a thumb toward the street. Another truck idled at the curb. 2 red Polos sat inside. If I'd started a jar for every red Polo I'd seen that month, I could have paid cash for a hot tub. He looked confused when I told him for the 3rd time to leave. He wasn't angry, just convinced. I dialed the non-emergency number for the police because I didn't want to burn goodwill by overusing 911 for tape measures. Officer Penner was on duty again. He arrived and the neon vest went from confident to apologetic. "We're contracted," the vest guy said. "We get work orders. It's all digital. It's said routine." "You're in his driveway without permission," Penner said. "The contract you think you have doesn't apply here. If your bosses send you back, tell them to read the county boundary map." The red Polos pretended to check the air conditioner vent for a signal and then drove off. Neon Vest left too, but not before apologizing again. I didn't blame him. He looked like a guy who wanted to measure things in peace. That night I found an envelope taped to my door. "Notice of entry," it said at the top like the world's worst party invitation. It stated that per association policy, they would enter my backyard on or about the following Tuesday to promote community standards. It listed a subsection of their bylaws, as if that meant anything to me. In the postscript, almost casually, it added, "Also, your truck will be towed if it remains parked in violation of street parking guidelines." I called Dre. He told me to photograph everything, not touch the paper. Fingerprints are startlingly boring in real life, but occasionally useful, and add a known date and timestamp. I did all of that, and then installed a taller hasp on the side gate and a camera over it. In the morning, I woke up to my truck alarm howling and a tow strap on my bumper. I sprinted outside in bare feet like a movie scene, which I regretted immediately because my driveway had the kind of pebbles that know how to stab. A tow truck had backed up in the dark like a ghost and was angled to yank my truck sideways off the driveway. The driver held a handheld device blinking with instructions. Dax stood on the sidewalk with a clipboard, his mirrored sunglasses trying to tell the sunrise who was boss. "Back off my car," I said. It came out lower than I expected. "Association parking enforcement," Dax said, smug as a porch cat. "You've been warned." "In what universe is my driveway street parking?" I asked. "Unhook the strap." "You don't want to add towing fees to your balance," he said. Officer Penner wasn't on duty at 6:30 in the morning, but someone else was. 2 squad cars arrived in a rolling gust of relief. The first officer asked who authorized the tow. Dax flashed his laminate like it would open a magic door to a land where he was in charge. The officer turned to the tow driver. "You got authorization from the property owner?" he asked. The driver shifted. "I got a work order. It says association enforcement." "You're on private property," the officer said. "This driveway and this truck belong to this homeowner. If you take this truck, that's auto theft. Unhook it." The driver's eyes widened in a way that suggested he had not planned on getting booked for a felony today. He unhooked the strap so fast I thought he'd dislocate a shoulder. The officer took Dax's laminate, examined it like a novelty coaster, and said, "This is not a badge." Dax sputtered. The officer authored a tirade that would have made a civics teacher cry. He explained that HOAs don't have police powers. He explained that they can enforce contracts, but only against people who actually have contracts with them. He explained that trespassing is still trespassing even if you wear a polo. "Consider this your second and final warning," the officer said. "If you set 1 foot on this property again, we're not writing a warning. We're writing a report." Dax left with his jaw tight and his sunglasses flashing. The tow driver apologized 6 times. He'd been told the whole neighborhood was under the same rules. It took me 10 minutes to calm my hands enough to text Dre. Dre replied with a suggestion I had not expected. "File a police report for attempted vehicle theft. We will also file for a temporary restraining order. This is escalating." It felt extreme. It also felt right. The next week became a montage of adult chores I never imagined. I filed the report. I took copies of the tow attempt and the notice of entry and my certified letters and brought them to the clerk at the civil courthouse. We petitioned for a civil harassment restraining order against Trails at Weatherfield and named Marilee and Dax as individuals in their roles. The judge granted a temporary, set a hearing for 3 weeks out, and issued an order that they stay 100 yards away from my property pending the hearing. When I served the papers through a process server named Juna who radiated try-me energy, I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that Marilee erupted. She canvassed the block with another letter, this time calling me non-cooperative, implying I was a problem neighbor and asking for community support. She cited a line in their bylaws that said members had a duty to avoid embarrassing the board in public. She included a QR code to donate to a legal defense fund. Owen brought the letter to me like a kid who found a weird bug. "Are we on teams now?" "We are on the team called The Law," I said. "You want to help? Write a statement about what you saw, that you gave them access and regret it, that they plugged something into your router without explaining and then tried to sell you a community internet plan." "Yeah," he said, "about that." He scratched behind his ear again. "Remember when my Netflix stopped working for 2 days? I think they installed something. They said it would optimize. But I saw an ad the next day for a community security camera feed I could subscribe to, like a neighborhood watch feed." I took a breath. "You think they installed a device on your network?" "I mean," he said, "I don't know. It looked like a little white square. They plugged it into my router for 5 minutes and then unplugged it. Maybe they just checked the speed? Or they grabbed your SSID and password," I said. "Did you change it afterwards?" He shook his head. "Should I?" "Yes," I said. "Right now." We dug into that thread. Owen changed his router password and set a new network name that was pure spite. We walked door to door to the 3 neighbors he trusted most and explained what happened. 2 shrugged. One, an older woman named Vera, who had lived there since the 80s, produced a stack of mail that made my skin prickle. Among the pastel warnings, there was a correction of recorded document form with Trails at Weatherfield's letterhead. It said they were updating the community boundary map. It asked her to sign for administrative convenience. "You didn't sign this, did you?" I asked. "I may be old," she said, "but I'm not bored." She hadn't signed. She'd kept it the way people keep weird things for later. A personal cold case files. I took high-res photos. Dre's reply, If they are soliciting signatures to alter recorded boundaries without a proper plat or county process, that's fraudulent. Keep everything. Then one morning at 5:55 a.m., my cameras caught two figures in hoodies trying my side gate with a key. The lock clanked, held. They retreated when the porch lights came on. The video captured one face briefly when a hood slipped. It was one of the red polos from day one. I sent the footage to the police, filed it as a violation of the temporary order, and emailed it to Dre. We amended our petition to include the attempted entry. Dre's tone went from seasoned amusement to measured tempo that means we're about to drop a metronome on somebody's head. The first court date was anticlimactic. Their attorney waved his hands and said I was overreacting. He said his clients were volunteers trying to keep the neighborhood nice. He said they had a right to protect property values. He suggested that I had brought a lot of negative energy onto the block and was weaponizing the legal system. Dre asked if they had a recorded easement. They did not. He asked if they had any contract with me. They did not. He asked if they could articulate any legal right to place a device in my home or on my network. They could not. He asked if they had attempted to tow my vehicle from my private driveway. Their attorney tried to dance. The judge did not dance. The judge extended the restraining order for 6 months. He stated for the record that I was not under trails at Weatherfield's jurisdiction, that they had no right to enter or inspect, and that enforcement of their bylaws against me was facially improper. He warned them specifically that my property line was a legal boundary, not a suggestion. He told them that if they attempted to file a lien, he would expect to see them back in his courtroom explaining why they shouldn't be sanctioned. You'd think that would be the end. It was not. They pivoted. If they couldn't get to me, they would try to make my life around me worse. They started sending community reminders to the entire block framing me as a safety hazard. They printed a poster that said, "Community Standards Matter," with a picture of a driveway that looked a lot like mine. Same model truck, same curb. They never used my name, but the shape of the accusation was obvious. Vera brought me a copy. Owen brought me 3 because he likes to collect trophies when someone is being ridiculous. I decided I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I filed a complaint with the State Consumer Protection Division about attempted debt collection for a debt I did not owe and about misrepresentations of authority. I filed a report with the County Recorder's Office about the correction of recorded document letters. I sent a packet to the Attorney General's office. Dre sent a separate letter to the management company asking for their proof of authority to act on behalf of Trails at Weatherfield, the scope of their contract, and whether their employees were entering private property without consent as a matter of policy. We CC'd the Sheriff's Department. I also did something I hadn't planned. I built a little website detailing my experience. Nothing flashy, no insults, just dates, times, copies of letters, screenshots of my parcel map, the restraining order, the video of the tow attempt, the porch camera click of the red polo trying my gate with a key. I included a form where neighbors could submit their own stories and evidence, anonymously if they wanted. I ran it by Dre first to make sure I wasn't accidentally libeling anyone. He approved with minor tweaks. Keep it factual, keep it boring. The facts are loud already. It took exactly 12 hours for the submissions to start. There was a couple who'd been fined because their dog was excessively friendly to a board member's poodle. There was a widow who had been billed for lawn remediation 3 times, even though she paid for a gardener and didn't understand why people were mowing her lawn in the middle of the day without asking. There were 4 separate accounts of red polos showing up at odd hours to measure, and a bizarre story from a teenager who said they'd come into his backyard while he was sunbathing and then told him the community pool has a modesty policy. One submission made my jaw lock. A screenshot of an email chain where the management company bragged about transitioning neighborhood networks to a managed solution. It talked about passive data collection for amenity optimization. It mentioned hardware pilots. The neighbor didn't know what it meant, but it looked like someone had given themselves permission to peek into people's internet traffic under the flag of much better streaming at the clubhouse. I handed the packet to Dre. He said the kind of lawyer words that sound like they're underlined twice. "This is beyond overreach," he said. "This is a pattern. Everything snapped into place. The inspection pretext, the router verifications, the community network policy, the way they used the neighbor example to bully compliance, the tow, the notice of entry. If you can make people feel like they owe you access, you can normalize the access. And if you can normalize the access, you can build a petty fiefdom with a subscription plan. I have a petty streak when mistreated. I also have enough restraining order paper to wallpaper my hallway. I decided it was time for a little, very legal, malicious compliance. I sent a certified letter inviting Marilee and the board to a courtesy inspection of my property at a date and time of my choosing. I stated that I would provide full access to the interior and exterior of my home for the purpose of verifying every single one of their alleged violations. I included a paragraph stating that my courtesy inspection was contingent on their providing proof of recorded easements and signed contracts giving them the right to enter. I attached a copy of the restraining order. I CC'd their attorney, the State Consumer Protection Division, and Officer Penner, who I assumed enjoyed these little updates with his coffee. Then I went to Lowe's and bought a 12-foot inflatable penguin, a string of blinking holiday lights, and 6-yard gnomes. It was July. I placed the penguin on my roof. I arranged the gnomes in the driveway, each one holding a laminated copy of the restraining order. I threaded the blinking lights along my fence with the no trespassing sign in the middle. I parked my truck right in front, took a photo, and posted it on my little website with the caption, "Awaiting inspection. Bring your easements." I figured it would buy me a laugh. I didn't expect it to become a neighborhood sport. By dusk, Vera had contributed 2 American flags and an old snowman. Owen produced a pink flamingo. A teenager from 3 houses down added a cardboard cutout of a very famous space captain. Every single item had a copy of the restraining order taped to it. We looked ridiculous. We also looked like we were done being polite to clipboards. They didn't come for the inspection. They sent a letter with an invented fine for unsanctioned holiday displays. I didn't pay. I kept the paper. I added it to the stack. The next week, a process server delivered a lawsuit to my door. Trails at Weatherfield was suing me for defamation because of my website. They wanted it taken down. They wanted damages for the reputational harm caused by my campaign of misinformation. They wanted an injunction to stop me from recruiting other members to harass volunteers. I took a walk to cool off, then found Dre's email, a draft anti-slap motion. It argued the suit was meant to silence me, cited truth as a defense, and attached exhibits: the restraining order, police reports, the tow attempt, the notice of entry, parcel map, and recorder's note, plus their own emails bragging about enforcement actions. He asked if I wanted to counterclaim for trespass, intrusion upon seclusion, and unfair debt collection. I did. I sent a plain language flyer to neighbors. An HOA is a contract. No contract, no power. Utilities have easements. Private groups don't. Trespass is a crime. You can say no. Soon, Owen texted photos. Snarky signs bloomed outside Marilee's place. Bring actual easements. Then, hearsay is not a tool. At the hearing, their lawyer ranted about my roof penguin. The judge granted anti-slap and fees. Emails from the association lost the management company's logo. Marilee announced a pause on inspections. Dax vanished. But the router issue gnawed at me. I filed a privacy complaint, attaching Owen's account and an email about passive data collection. Investigators saw log entries tied to the vendor named in the community network policy. The county recorder confirmed boundary corrections require a public process, not door-taped letters. An emergency meeting followed. Management was terminated, board seats opened, and a stiff, "We may have exceeded our mandate," floated out. Government sedans visited Marilee. State Consumer Protection opened a case. The Privacy Office examined the network scheme. The recorder warned all HOAs about boundary games. The interim board apologized in writing, acknowledged zero authority over my parcel, promised vendors would stay off my lot, and gently asked me to remove the penguin. I did. The gnomes stayed for punishments landed where they should. The management company was fined for misrepresentation and unlicensed collection and bled contracts once the router talk got around. The tow company sent me a handwritten apology and a diner gift card. I cleaned the driveway, planted a maple, archived my website, and kept a Know Your Rights sheet handy for new neighbors. If anyone insisted I'd been evicted for buying outside their boundary, I reintroduced them to the actual boundary. Loose threads closed. A tipster warned Owen to change his password. Too late. He had. We added a guest router anyway. The lesson stuck. A boundary isn't just a line on a map, it's a habit. When someone wedges a foot in your door, you call 911, then a lawyer, then you write everything down. Paper, patience, and a little humor beat clipboards every time. If life ever demands a sequel, I'll buy the penguin a friend. We started a simple group chat, moved a turtle, and remembered usefulness without intrusion together. Friends, thank you. See you soon.